Hello, everyone. As the first season of our podcast concludes, today our guest is our very own Yasser Bashir. Yasser is a Lums and Stanford grad. However, he's most famously associated with being the CEO and co founder of Arbisoft, which is a software development company.
Beyond Arbisoft, Yasser is a leader that a lot of people in the industry look up to. He's a coach to so many and is also an angel investor for various early stage startups. Assalamu alaikum, Yasser bhai. How are you?
बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक आप लोग सुनाएं
बिल्कुल
कैसे?
ठीक ठाक. Thank you
Very
so much.
nervous, obviously.
Not us.
नहीं नहीं.
नहीं मजाक कर रहा हूँ. There's no nervousness.
But thank you आपने हमारी सुनी और आप इस गुफ्तगू चैनल पे आए. Cause I know you thought कि हमें नहीं आना चाहिए इधर. वो हम बहुत ऐसी वैसी बातें कर लेंगे. पर हम बहुत अच्छी बातें करेंगे आज.
नहीं I think more than that I was just fearing कि यार Arbisoft की podcast में Arbisoft के CEO को बुलाने का क्या फायदा, right? Like you should call other people, but you guys did such a fantastic job with the first few guests कि I also got tempted कि नहीं आना चाहिए.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because there's so much, people, and obviously, I think we can learn from you. Sabse pehle, I would like to start that congratulations that you had to say bye and to your daughter and saying कि तुम अब Stanford जा रही हो जहाँ से मैं भी पढ़ के निकला था. So obviously a moment of pride, but very emotions attached to that situation and that whole scenario. So how was that experience like? क्योंकि moment of pride भी है, but you're saying bye to your baby girl. So, as a father, what did you feel at that moment?
I think obviously bittersweet सारी चीज़ है लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि my joy and pride and excitement was way more than any sense of sadness. Like obviously there is sadness, लेकिन it's a dream come true. आपको पता है वो वहीं पैदा हुई थी. She was born at the Stanford Hospital. So I could not have imagined in my wildest dreams that one day she will actually go there. So I mean, yeah, it was just really exciting. वो मेरा bucket list item था riding around the Stanford campus with my daughter. We did that. Because वहाँ पे distances बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. Classes में जाने के लिए आपको bike इस्तेमाल करनी पड़ती है. तो काफ़ी किया हमने तो मज़ा आया.
Nice.
So overall, yes, emotional goodbye, but I think कि बहुत super blessed and proud. I could not have wished for a better outcome here. And also, I think as parents, one of the best gifts that you can give to your children is the gift of education.
Yeah.
So I think I can safely say that I could not have done better in giving her a gift in that sense.
Very nice. Very
Not
nice.
that I had a lot of contribution to it, but yes, definitely.
So any piece of advice, when you were saying bye to her, कुछ कि ये चीज याद रखना या something,
I think main advice मेरी यही है कि देखें, this is a privilege, right? So going to a university in itself is a privilege. Getting education is a privilege. Going to one of the best universities in the world is a privilege. तो वो आपको privilege जो मिला है वो learning के लिए मिला है. So everything else becomes kind of secondary, right? So make learning your top priority always. और बहुत सारी चीज़ें वहाँ होती हैं यूनिवर्सिटी में. बहुत सारी चीज़ें आपकी लर्निंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ दूसरी तरह की भी होती हैं. दोस्त होते हैं, सोशल सर्कल होता है, चीज़ें देखने का मौका मिलता है, मज़े करने का मौका मिलता है. लेकिन आई थिंक द टॉप प्रायोरिटी एट अ यूनिवर्सिटी शुड बी टू लर्न. और फिर उसमें भी मुझे ये लगता है कि लर्निंग उस लेवल पे होनी चाहिए. जैसे अगर आपने यूनिवर्सिटी में क्लास ली और कुछ सीखा, लेकिन आप वही कुछ सीख सकते थे एक यूट्यूब वीडियो से, तो फिर यूनिवर्सिटी जाने का क्या फ़ायदा, राइट? लेकिन यूनिवर्सिटी आपको कुछ एक यूनिक अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ प्रोवाइड करती है, जैसे a group of really smart people that you can bounce ideas off of. वो आप एक ऑनलाइन यूट्यूब के वीडियो पे तो नहीं कर रहे होते ना. इसी तरह really really good professors. तो learn but in a way that you cannot learn anywhere else. That's the purpose of university. तो ये उसको main lesson यही था कि देखो learning को अपनी priority बनाओ. And this is a privilege, and you should feel the weight of this. Everyone should feel the weight of the privileges that they get in life, right? वो free नहीं है, उसके साथ आपने कुछ करना है. तो अगर आप privileged हैं तो आपको फिर उस privilege का फ़ायदा उठाना है और उससे फिर दुनिया के लिए कुछ बेहतर करना है. तो बस मेनली यही था. बाकी ये कि I feel like our children are much smarter than us, so they'll figure out a way to make the best use of this
Yeah,
opportunity.
definitely. I mean, that's the hope eventually, right?
Yeah.
So आपने बहुत कुछ like you were FSC में I think आपने top किया था, फिर
It was
LUMS.
correct position.
It's close enough.
So obviously achievements of life, फिर Arbisoft किया, multiple जगहों पे काम किया, you have a really amazing network of people, and the contributions you're also at a societal level आप कर रहे होते हैं. कभी ऐसा feel आपको हुआ या you think कि maybe वो प्रेशर मैंने अपने बच्चों में तो कहीं इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं वो कर रहे हूँ कि वी ऑल्सो हैव टू बी एट दैट लेवल जहाँ पे हमारे फादर हैं या उनसे ऊपर जाना है बिकॉज ही इज़ डूइंग सो मच, सो वो ऑटो एक्सपेक्टेशन एक अलाइन हो जाती है उनके साथ.
And it doesn't have to be like एक आपने शायद express ना किया हो
हाँ.
कभी outright, I wanted to go to Stanford
Obviously.
or like a really good university, but maybe your kids, subconsciously felt के we need to do a
I
lot.
think शायद हाँ subconsciously उनके ऊपर शायद थोड़ा pressure हो इस चीज़ का, लेकिन as parents we've always insisted on just being good human beings, recognizing your privileges and making sure that you use them for the good of the society or the people around you, your family, वो सारी चीज़ें. लेकिन हो सकता है कुछ subconscious pressure हो, explicitly कभी force नहीं किया, कभी pressure नहीं किया कि ज़रूर ये करो या ये ना करो. And I feel like it has served us well. We're very, very blessed to have the children that we have, and I hope वो नहीं feel करते pressure, because हम एक जैसे Arbisoft की वो core value है ना, effort वाली, तो वो core value, like it's not just something written on the wall. वो मैं सबको ही कहता हूँ कि यार at the end of the day आपने मेहनत करनी है, और अगर उसका कोई आउटकम अच्छा होता है बहुत अच्छी बात है, नहीं भी होता तो आउटकम्स आपके कंट्रोल में नहीं होते, एफर्ट आपके कंट्रोल में होती है. तो बस मेहनत करें, अपनी बेस्ट एफर्ट पुट इन करें. अगर नहीं अच्छा नतीजा निकला कोई बात नहीं, मूव ऑन. बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ मिलती हैं इंसान को ज़िंदगी में कुछ करने के लिए, एक नहीं होती. तो आई थिंक कोशिश तो यही करते हैं कि मेक देम कंफर्टेबल विद फेलियर, बिकॉज अगर आपके पास फेलियर्स नहीं हो रहे हैं ना, तो फिर इसका मतलब आप कुछ खास ट्राई नहीं कर रहे ज़िंदगी में. तो फेलियर्स आर अ गुड बैरोमीटर फॉर नोइंग दैट यू आर ट्राइंग समथिंग इन लाइफ. अगर आप बिल्कुल एक प्लेट सेव करें तो फिर obviously you have a lot more potential than whatever you're doing. So I hope के नहीं लेते होंगे pressure.
Definitely.
So you talked about failures essentially.
Yeah.
So similarly, like when we were going through your journey, अगर बंदा देखे तो when you started off at LUMS, तब they had literally just started their CS program. So why would you take that risk given कि somebody who has pretty good grades in high school could have ended up anywhere in the world, बाहर probably बहुत बेहतर CS degrees चल रही होंगी if that was of interest to you. तो मतलब why LUMS, एक चीज जो अपने business school के लिए famous है, CS उन्होंने शुरू किया and you just decided to like enroll in the first batch.
That's a great question. Actually मेरे ख्याल से लोगों को पता नहीं है कि मैं UET में गया था पहले. So I actually went to UET for electrical engineering. तो उससे भी पहले I actually got into GIK.
Okay.
तो I was my mother's favorite child and she said no chance कि मैं तुम्हें इतनी दूर भेज रही हूँ. I was pretty disappointed. मैंने कहा अच्छा नहीं, वो अच्छी यूनिवर्सिटी खुल रही है, ये वो और सारा कुछ. उन्होंने कहा नहीं, तुम्हें लाहौर में ही रहना है. तो फिर I went to UET. UET में प्रॉब्लम ये होती थी, UET is a great university, बहुत अच्छे प्रोफेसर्स हैं, सबसे स्मार्ट स्टूडेंट्स वहाँ UET में आते हैं पाकिस्तान के, लाइक जो FSC स्ट्रीम के बेस्ट बच्चे होते हैं वो UET में आते हैं. तो आई वेंट देयर, लेकिन उस ज़माने में बहुत पॉलिटिक्स थी UET में. तो इट यूज टू टेक टिपिकली 6 years टू ग्रेजुएट, यानी कि 4 साल का प्रोग्राम था, वो 6 साल लग जाते थे. तो उससे मैं पहले ही इरिटेटेड था कि यार GIK नहीं गया, ऊपर से UET में मुझे लग रहा था यार मैं 6 साल इधर गुजारूंगा. तो देन बेसिकली जस्ट आई सॉ दिस एड, अखबार में देखा LUMS, मुझे उनके MBA प्रोग्राम का पता था. तो आई न्यू कि वो दे वर स्टार्टिंग अ न्यू अंडरग्रेड प्रोग्राम, लेकिन their MBA program was already established. And मैंने कहा चलो टेस्ट दे के देखते हैं क्या होगा. अच्छा, इससे पहले ना UET में इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग कर रहा था, लेकिन between my FSC and UET I had actually taken PICS होता था उस ज़माने में, जो अब UCP है शायद.
Okay.
तो वहाँ से I had taken like a short course. तो कंप्यूटर तो मेरे पास शुरू से ही था, लेकिन I properly did programming in that short course. तो I loved it. right? Like some people get intimidated by programming. वो C++ वगैरह सिखा रहे थे, and I still remember the name of the professor, Zargham Haider. Really, really nice guy. Unfortunately, he's passed away. तो I really loved it. अब UET में जाके वो circuits और electrical engineering के subjects, and wasn't enjoying it. It was going to take 6 years. तो फिर मैंने कहा चलो जाके लम्स का टेस्ट दे देते हैं. तो the test was at the current लम्स campus. लम्स का पहले campus होता था लिबर्टी मार्केट में. तो अब करंट कैंपस पे मैंने कहा जाके टेस्ट दे देते हैं. तो the campus was beautiful, right? They just built it. The classes were amazing, and it turned out that it would, cut down my undergrad time to 3 years, because वो पहला बैच जो था ना वो 3 साल में ग्रेजुएट कर रहे थे. तो फिर मैंने कहा कि यार दिस जस्ट कंप्यूटर साइंस को मुझे शौक है, ठीक है, बिकॉज आई लव प्रोग्रामिंग. इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग में 6 साल लगने, एंड दिस इज़ अ नाइस कैंपस क्लोज टू माई हाउस. मैं वो बसेस पकड़ के वो यूईटी जाता था इतनी दूर. मैंने कहा घर के पास भी है, तो बस इस तरह फिर उधर चले गए. बट yeah, it was one of those moments in life which just completely changed your direction. I don't know if it got changed for the better or the worse. I don't know where
I think it did for the better.
I don't know.
Meet Umair bhai at Lums?
No, I did not. Umair was always Umair was number one. I was always right behind him. And उसके बावजूद हमारे अंदर कोई वो नहीं है, rivalry नहीं है, because I was always a distant second. It was not like we were neck and neck and I was trying to beat him. नहीं, Umair was always like in all 3 years he was the number one computer science graduate, and when we all graduated, so I was number 2, he was number 1 in computer science, and overall he was again number 1, and overall economics and computer science I was number 3.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
He was the valedictorian. We know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he told us.
Very nice.
So ये डिसीजन आपने फिर खुद ही कि अच्छा दिस आपने एक चीज को देखा फिर दूसरी चीज को कट ऑफ किया कि अच्छा ठीक है नाउ दिस मेक सेंस टू मी एंड नाउ आई विल टेक दिस डिसीजन.
I think कोई भी डिसीजन खुद नहीं करना चाहिए. Obviously you always need to bounce these decisions off. Like decision खुद करना चाहिए, लेकिन you should always get opinions from other people, right? Obviously I discussed it with my parents. वालिद साहब से डिस्कस किया. वालिदा ने तो कहा देखो तुम कह रहे थे ये देखो, वो she was very pious I say. तो वो दुआएं शुआएं बहुत करती थी. देखो तुम कह रहे थे कि तुमने उधर जाना है, तुम्हें यहाँ पे अच्छी जगह एडमिशन मिल गया तो उधर चले जाओ. तो my father also said कि हाँ जल्दी फारिग हो जाओगे यहाँ से, seems like a good university. So yeah, it wasn't a difficult decision, and I had only spent like 3 months at UET at that time.
Okay.
Interesting.
The reason I'm saying I don't know whether it was a good decision or bad decision is because many of my batchmates from UET actually went on to accomplish great things as well. So it's not like अच्छा यार अगर आप उधर चले जाते तो पता नहीं आप क्या करते. They're all good universities. कोई ऐसा नहीं है. हाँ लम्स के अंदर एक जो अच्छी चीज़ थी कि I got exposed to more diversity.
Yeah.
तो मुख्तलिफ बैकग्राउंड से लोग आए हुए थे, नॉट नेसेसरली वो FSC स्ट्रीम. कुछ लिबरल आर्ट्स के कोर्सेज लेके आए हुए थे, कुछ A लेवल करके आए थे, कुछ FSC करके आए थे. तो वो डाइवर्सिटी का फ़ायदा हो गया. एंड देन ऑब्वियसली द फैसिलिटीज़ वर टॉप नॉच, वर्ल्ड क्लास.
That probably brings me to this thing कि अभी अगर हम देखें, so at that point in time maybe people thought कि, like you said, going to university itself was a privilege. So anybody who has been to university, graduated, हर कोई उसकी एक किस्म की रिस्पेक्ट करता होगा कि अच्छा यार ये बंदा पढ़ लिख गया अच्छे किस्म से. लेकिन at this point in time, because it's a little more common, right, to go to a university, so I feel कि certain universities have like a prestige attached to it, especially अगर लम्स की बात करें. तो अभी if you meet like a लम्स grad versus किसी और यूनिवर्सिटी का grad, even though they might not have कोई apparent difference नहीं होगा उनमें, but one of the two like would feel के शायद the LUMS grad is better than me, or the LUMS grad would feel I am better off because I went to LUMS. As the CEO, do you ever like face that bias? If not, how do you like make sure कि वो ना आ रहे हो आपके वैसे? Because naturally you feel oh अच्छा that even if अगर हम LUMS की बात करें, let's talk about Stanford, right? So if you meet a Stanford grad, you'll be like, oh, this guy went to Stanford, he's pretty smart. तो इस तरह के biases आते हैं.
I think ये बड़ा ज़बरदस्त सवाल है. अनकॉन्शियसली शायद आते हों थोड़े से, लेकिन मैं बहुत कंसिस्टेंट हूँ इसके बारे में. और you can find other interviews that I've given या other places where I've spoken about this topic कि more than the university, what matters is कि and even for admissions abroad this matters a lot कि relatively आप अपनी class में कहाँ stand करते हैं,
Yeah.
right? So I would take a top 10% student from Bahauddin Zakriya University, Multan, over a bottom 50% student from LUMS. ये मेरे
Agreed.
जहन में बिल्कुल क्लियर है.
Yeah.
तो एक ये आई थिंक साइड पे रख लेना चाहिए. अब लेकिन आई थिंक आपका क्वेश्चन इज मोर स्पेसिफिक कि लेट्स से देयर वाज अ टॉप 20% स्टूडेंट फ्रॉम आई डोंट नो Islamic University Bahawalpur, which is a university that you know we love, right? We hire a lot from there as well, and a top 20% student from LUMS. So I think I would not have like an overall judgment कि अच्छा ये बेहतर है और ये खराब है. Like I would consider certain qualities or attributes in the LUMS graduate which I would not consider in the other person. जैसे अगर आप LUMS में गए हैं तो you're obviously likely to be more polished, right? आपको ज़रा presentation skills और उस पर ज़रा ज़्यादा सिखाया गया है. कम्युनिकेशन आपकी बेहतर है, अंग्रेज़ी आप शायद थोड़ी बेहतर बोलते हो. लेकिन अगर आप इस्लामिया यूनिवर्सिटी बहावलपुर गए हैं तो you probably have more resilience. आपने despite your odds एक ऐसी जगह पे जिसने जगह ने इतना आपको फैसिलिटेट नहीं किया था, लेकिन आपने अपनी कैपेबिलिटी की बेस पे एक्सेल किया है. तो आई डोंट थिंक कि इट वुड बी अ ब्लैक एंड वाइट, ओके दिस गाय इज बेटर एंड दिस गाय इज वर्स, और दिस गर्ल इज बेटर और दिस गर्ल इज वर्स. इट वुड बी इसके ये स्पेसिफिक एट्रीब्यूट्स और क्वालिटीज़ हैं और इसके ये स्पेसिफिक एट्रीब्यूट्स और क्वालिटीज़ हैं. लेकिन इन जनरल वो पहला वाला रूल हमेशा अप्लाई करता है कि बाहर भी जब आप यूनिवर्सिटी में अप्लाई करते हैं ना तो कंसिस्टेंटली हर यूनिवर्सिटी के फॉर्म में एक सवाल होता है कि you know when they ask the referees कि अच्छा यार इसको बताएं कि of all the people that you have taught, where would you rank this person in the top 5%, in the top 10%, in the top 15%? It turns out कि being in the top 0 to 20% is kind of a big deal no matter where you are in the world. Because दुनिया में हर जगह स्मार्ट लोग हैं. चलती फिरती पॉपुलेशन अगर आप लेना कहीं पे भी तो 2% people have an IQ of more than 130. This is just like statistics. तो आप दुनिया में कहीं पे भी हैं, आप किसी यूनिवर्सिटी की क्लास में हैं, वो लोग आपके साथ हैं और अगर आपने उनसे compete करके you done well, तो then you have something special.
So अब ऑब्वियसली हम उन चीज़ों पे बात कर रहे हैं और डिसीजंस की भी हम बात कर रहे हैं. सो ऑब्वियसली रनिंग अ नियर 2000 मैन कंपनी, इतने अरसे से आप लोगों ने चीज़ें सारी चलाई भी हैं, देखी भी हैं, अप्स एंड डाउन्स एंड एवरीथिंग. बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो है ना दे रिवॉल्व अराउंड डिसीजन मेकिंग इन जनरल, राइट? जहाँ पे समटाइम्स यू हैव टू टेक क्विक डिसीजंस कि मे बी देयर आर टू पार्टीज और वहाँ पे येस एंड नो चल रहा है एंड देन यू हैव टू जंप इन एंड टेक दैट डिसीजन. So what is your thought process behind making that quick decision? Sometimes you can upset someone who is like a close friend or maybe a good colleague, and obviously इस तरह से भी चीज़ें चल सकती हैं. Then how do you make sure कि अच्छा decision हो गया है, now I have to make sure be कि because you come as a good guy, a nice guy, and then you have to make up with that relationship as well. So how does that process look like to you?
I think मेरा स्टाइल काफ़ी मुख्तलिफ स्टाइल्स होते हैं लोगों के. मेरा काफ़ी कोलैबोरेटिव है, तो आई नेवर टेक डिसीजंस इन आइसोलेशन. मेरी कोशिश होती है कोई भी बड़ा डिसीजन जो है उसके लिए कम से कम एडवाइस ज़रूर ली जाए. और मैं लोगों को भी ये रिकमेंड करता हूँ, इट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज आपके ब्लाइंड स्पॉट्स होते हैं, राइट? तो व्हेन यू आस्क समबडी एल्स कि अच्छा मैं ये सोच रहा हूँ, समटाइम्स दे से अच्छा इसके बारे में सोचा है, तो इट्स नॉट लाइक यू आर आस्किंग देम टू मेक अ डिसीजन फॉर यू. दे आर जस्ट बेसिकली टेलिंग यू अबाउट all of the different things that you should have considered in making the decision. That process is really important, and in that process if you're just basically discussing it with stakeholders ना जो कि उस डिसीजन से इम्पैक्ट होते हैं, तो उनका बाय इन भी फिर आता है. अगर आप उनसे डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं, उनसे डिसीजन में लेट्स से एडवाइस ले रहे हैं, तो उनका बाय इन आता है. बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली यही होता है कि यू आर मेकिंग कोलैबोरेटिव डिसीजन मेकिंग एंड एवरीबडी एग्रीज ऑन द डिसीजन, फिर आप ले लेते हैं. और कभी कभी ये होता है कि लाइक आई सीक एडवाइस फ्रॉम 5-10 people, and then I would go against their advice. So taking advice does not mean कि आप just you're following direction. Taking advice means कि आप सारे aspect of a decision consider करें. और उसकी examples Arbisoft में भी हैं. I know I've been advised multiple times कि why do we have this hard talk channel, right? और बहुत सारे लोग कहते हैं क्या है, और बहुत सारे लोगों ने मुझे कहा है कि नहीं ये हमें we should end the privilege of anonymous posting in hard talk. लेकिन मैं डटा हुआ हूँ अभी तक तो नहीं, मैं पीछे हटा. लेकिन हो सकता है कि if more data comes in I might change my mind, because overall I think it just in making decisions दो तीन चीज़ें important होती है, advice obviously and then your values, right? What are your values? If you shouldn't make decisions that are against your values or your principles. तो कभी मुझे लगता है कि अगर एडवाइस मेरी वैल्यूज से क्लैश करी है ना तो आई वुड फेवर वैल्यूज ओवर एडवाइस.
That's a pretty good thing because that was going to be one of our questions.
Yeah.
कि what if आपने कभी कोई decision लेना है and values actually clash कर रही हो आपकी? And I'm sure there have been multiple instances where that has happened. And I know you said you're going to prefer values over the decision itself. But has there ever been a problem जहाँ पे let's say you were not the only decision maker? So it had to be multiple people who had to say yes to a certain thing, and you felt कि यार this decision is happening and I don't like this because मेरी values compromise हो रही हैं.
अच्छा, कोई लिविंग मेमोरी में नहीं है, हो सकता है गलती से हो गया हो, राइट? ऐसा नहीं है कि मुझे पता था कि वैल्यू वायलेट होने लगी है या होने जा रही है एंड आई डिड नॉट पुट माय फुट डाउन और आई डिड नॉट रेजिस्ट इट. वो आमतौर पे याद नहीं है. लाइक जब भी मुझे लगता है कि यार अच्छा ये वैल्यू इससे वायलेट होगी तो फिर आई ट्राई टू फाइट टूथ एंड नेल कि नहीं, ये हमारी कोर वैल्यूज़ नहीं वायलेट होनी चाहिए. या जो भी पर्सनल वैल्यूज़ हैं, कुछ तो लिखी हुई वैल्यूज़ हैं लेकिन कुछ इंसान की पर्सनल वैल्यूज़ भी होती हैं. मसलन एग्जांपल है ना कि आपकी एक लिखी हुई वैल्यू नहीं है लेकिन इंटेग्रिटी इज़ इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस. तो अगर आपको कोई आके कहे ये डिसीजन करना है, इसमें थोड़ा सा देयर इज लाइक अ क्वेश्चन मार्क इन फ्रंट ऑफ इंटेग्रिटी, देयर इज नो चांस. लाइक आई कांट इमेजिन माई सेल्फ सेइंग अच्छा हाँ चलो कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ कर लेते हैं इसके ऊपर. लाइक आई वुड फाइट इट टू द लास्ट, टू द लास्ट एक्सट्रीम दैट आई हैव टू फाइट इट. उसके बावजूद भी हो सकता है इंसान से गलतियां हो जाती हैं. नोबडी इज परफेक्ट, राइट? तो वैल्यूज आर लाइक गाइडिंग स्टार्स, लेकिन आप हमेशा अपने गाइडिंग स्टार्स को नहीं फॉलो कर लेते, कभी कभी भटक भी जाते हैं, राइट? तो हो सकता है कि कभी भटके हों, लेकिन इन जनरल डिसीजन मेकिंग में मेक श्योर, मुझे ये लगता है, एटलीस्ट दिस इज माय प्रिंसिपल फॉर माई सेल्फ, कि मेक श्योर कि आपकी वैल्यूज वायलेट नहीं हो रही. मेक श्योर दैट यू सॉट एडवाइस फ्रॉम पीपल दैट यू ट्रस्ट. फिर आप अच्छे डिसीजंस कर सकते हैं. एंड ऑल्सो आई थिंक not making a decision is worse than making a bad decision.
That is so true.
So कई दफ़ा ये होता है कि हम वो डिले करते रहते हैं and I'm guilty of that. मैं बहुत procrastinate करता हूँ. That's one of my shortcomings. So I feel like there are definite instances of where I should have made that decision, लेकिन I just kept delaying it, right? वो भी नहीं करना चाहिए. So
any decision you regret?
Wow, this is a weighty question.
This is like a loaded question.
This is a really
Because कुछ तो
weighty
मेरे ख्याल में हमारे ज़हन में थे कि ये नहीं, लेकिन पूछते नहीं. आप बताएं.
I'm sure like हर किसी के there. So for example, even it doesn't really have to be like a huge regret, but just thinking कि यार काश
उस टाइम पे ये.
अभी लम्ज़ली आप example दे रहे थे, right? You weren't really sure, but
I think
regrets बहुत आ रहे हैं.
नहीं मेरी डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म ये है कि वेरी गुड डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म, राइट? कि लाइक if I've made like a bad move, then I want to forget about it.
You don't want to rectify it?
नहीं, यानी कि basically I want to move on. I don't, वो मैं हार्बर करके नहीं रखता अपने अंदर के. Let me think. I'm sure ऐसे decisions थे जो कि
कोई चलता फिरता decision.
I love how you don't remember because like मेरे fingertips पे होंगे मेरे बुरे decisions.
हाँ नहीं, मैं वो डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म मेरा बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है उसके बारे में. I think one of the decisions, this has to do with Arbisoft's business, right?
Yeah.
One of the decisions that we took in the first 10 years or so, we got many opportunities to set up like revenue and sales operations.
Yeah.
तो हम हमेशा ये कहते थे कि यार in the first 10 years Arbisoft की कहानी ये थी कि we always were getting more business than we could handle. तो हमारे customers were saying great things about us, ठीक है? और they were constantly referring us to new customers. अभी हमारे personal networks had not been exhausted. My personal network had not been exhausted. So, I could easily go to my network and find new opportunities for business. तो अक्सर ये सवाल उठता था कि अच्छा, let's set up like sales.
Yeah.
तो हमेशा मैंने डिसीजन लिया कि नहीं, अगर सेल्स की डिपार्टमेंट सेटअप करेंगे क्या होगा, और सेल्स आएंगी, जो अभी सेल्स आ रही हैं वही नहीं हैंडल हो रही, और लाने का क्या फ़ायदा. हमेशा ये डिसीजन लिया नहीं करना. लेकिन in hindsight that was the best time. Like some of these things should be done when you don't need to do them,
Yeah.
right? So when you need them, you're ready. I feel like that was consistently a repeated bad decision over many years.
Yeah.
We should have operationalized our business development and sales, because as the organization grows, that's something that you need.
Agreed.
So this is an example of a bad decision. और उसको फिक्स करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. अभी उसको बुलाए बगैर फिक्स करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
Oh
But it's still
God.
funny that it took me so long to recall it. लेकिन
Khair, in the future, if you ever like face this indecisiveness wali cheese, my dad uses this 95-5 rule, which basically means that out of the 100 decisions that you take, 90 of them are going to be okay or good decisions.
Yeah.
10 of them would be wrong decisions, but 5 out of those 10 would be decisions you can like correct after you've taken them.
Yes.
तो वो 5 decisions जो आप गलत ले रहे हो शायद correct ना हो सके, उनके लिए अपने बाकी 95 को impact ना करें. So like, because I used to be a very indecisive person, so he would always just constantly tell me कि यार just take this decision because you're wasting too much time. So I hope this helps you too.
No, this is really really beneficial. हाँ, I'll keep that in mind. मेरे केस में जो मेरी indecisiveness होती है ना, it's also not always a function of अच्छा मैंने decision ही नहीं लेना या I'm just going to ignore this until I need to. It's usually I need more data, I need more data, I need more data. तो आप data इतना इकट्ठा करते रहते हैं कि कई दफ़ा ये होता है कि by the time you have enough data, it's already stale.
It's too late.
Yeah,
Yes.
The data is already stale, and now even with all of that data, you're going to make a suboptimal decision. तो मेरे ख्याल से कई दफ़ा good decision making is a combination of data and intuition. तो मेरे ख्याल से थोड़ा सा अपनी intuition पे ज़्यादा rely करना चाहिए कभी-कभी. And then just seeking good advice. I think that's really important. मेरे ख्याल में सबसे important ये है अच्छे advisor से बात करें. People who've been there before, done it. और वो हमेशा आपको कोई ऐसा perspective बता देंगे जो आपने नहीं consider किया हुआ.
आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा हम सीईओ से वगैरह भी बात कर रहे हैं. जनरल आपस में भी सारे काफ़ी बात करते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन. पाकिस्तान एक डिप में है अभी. एंड रिटेनिंग टैलेंट, लोगों को मोटिवेट करना, लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड्स कैसे बेहतर करना. आई मीन दैट्स अ चैलेंज फॉर आई थिंक ऑलमोस्ट प्रीटी एवरीवन हु इज रनिंग अ बिजनेस और लुकिंग इनटू प्रोडक्ट्स. सो जब डिसीजन मेकिंग की वहाँ पर बात आती है कि हाउ टू मेक योर पीपल फील सेफ, फील they're being heard, and how can we accommodate those people in these times, because these times are not like that कि business के लिए अच्छा है, वो business के लिए भी ठीक नहीं है और वो लोगों के लिए भी ठीक नहीं है. It's impacting both ways. So उस angle को किस तरह से हम अभी देख रहे होते हैं, because I know we've taken corrective measures भी कुछ हिसाब से, कुछ हमें सही लग रहे हैं, कुछ हमें shaky about them. But generally, what is your like vision जब हम इस situation को देखते हैं, how can we handle it better, and then how can we message people की इस तरह से इस angle को भी हम देख सकते हैं. पर जनरली सीईओस क्या करें फिर इस बारे में?
हाँ, आई थिंक इट्स अ डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन बिकॉज वो अभी मुझे लगता है कि कुछ पहली दफ़ा है इन रीसेंट हिस्ट्री, एटलीस्ट इन माय माइंड, कि वो लाइट एट द एंड ऑफ द टनल भी को खास नज़र नहीं आ रही, राइट? कि व्हाट इज गोइंग टू चेंज, कि यहाँ पाकिस्तान की चीज़ें थोड़ी बेहतर हो जाएंगी. तो चैलेंज डेफिनेटली ज़रूर है, लेकिन मुझे ये भी लगता है कि literally there is such a thing as rock bottom, right? So I'm always hoping कि this is the rock bottom और इसके बाद the only way is up. तो मुझे लगता है कि इस वक्त हालात इतने ख़राब हैं कि इससे ज़्यादा मज़ीद नीचे नहीं जा सकते, अब ऊपर ही जाएंगे. तो एक तो शायद I think we all need to get some hope from that, although this idea clashes with one of my life principles from आप लोगों से कोई Calvin Hobbes पढ़ता है तो उसमें वो Calvin का एक बड़ी famous line है कि things are never so bad that they couldn't be worse, right?
Yeah.
Right? So it clashes with that life principle also, but I feel like हम काफ़ी ऐसी जगह पे आ गए हैं नीचे आते आते कि अब मज़ीद नीचे तो नहीं जा सकते, ऊपर ही जाएंगे तो चीज़ें बेहतर हो जाएंगी. एक ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी का इसमें बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा था. ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी खासतौर पे हमारे जैसे कंपनीज के लिए, राइट? आईटी कंपनीज आर जनरली they get affected by the national economics and politics, but they get way more affected by the global economics and politics. So I think the downward spiral started with the Ukraine war. उसके बाद VC funding dry up हो गई. तो इस वक्त दुनिया में बहुत ज़्यादा टेक में, with the exception of like a few very narrow verticals, बहुत ज़्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं हो रही. तो उसका एक फॉल आउट है कंपनीज के ऊपर, वो तो हमें 100% पता है कि रिवर्स हो जाएगा इन the next few months or the next few quarters at max. पाकिस्तान का ये है कि हाँ मुश्किल है, लेकिन पाकिस्तान के बारे में कुछ चीज़ें हमेशा हमें मुझे तो कम से कम होपफुल रखती हैं. एक तो ये कि our older generation is being replaced by our younger generation, and the younger generation is much better. I guess there's no question about it. They are more worldly wise, उनका perspective ज़रा broad है, और आहिस्ता आहिस्ता when they replace the last generation, तो I think things will improve for Pakistan. And we have a lot of young people. वो तो हर कोई कहता है, क्लीशे बन गया पाकिस्तान में बहुत सारे, we are a very youthful country, and there's a lot of hope in that sense. दूसरी जो चीज़ पाकिस्तान के बारे में जिससे मुझे कम से कम होप मिलती है, वो ये है कि यार देखें, डिस्पाइट ऑल ऑड्स, क्या हमारे पास वर्ल्ड क्लास इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं? तो हैं, यस, राइट. आई मीन obviously we've been talking about lums को आप दुनिया की किसी भी अच्छी यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ juxtapose कर सकते हैं. जब when you enter the walls of that institution, you can see it's a world class institution, ज़बरदस्त facilities, ज़बरदस्त faculty, and it has produced amazing output, right? Like graduates from lums have done great things in academia and industry all around the world, not just Pakistan. लेकिन lums के बारे में आप somebody could argue कि यार it was started by very very wealthy industrialists. Again, then there are other institutions which are doing world class work. अगर academia में देखते हैं, IBA है, Khan University is just amazing, could stand up to any other medical college in the world. There are institutions that were started with almost nothing, जिस तरह हुवत है, पूरी दुनिया में शायद उसकी केस स्टडीज पढ़ाई जाती हैं. तो मेरा सवाल ये है कि हम उन फैक्टर्स की फिक्र करने के बजाय, जो कि हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है, पॉलिटिक्स, गवर्नमेंट, द रोल ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशन लाइक पब्लिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस, हम we try to create a lot more of these centers of excellence, and that can change this country. Just imagine for a second in your head that there were 100 universities like Aga Khan University in Pakistan. Pakistan would be completely different. Or there were 30 organizations like Ahuwa. तो आई थिंक आप जहाँ पे भी हैं, लोग जहाँ पे भी हैं, जिस इंस्टीट्यूशन में हैं, they should think about how can I create that center of excellence. And then if we have enough of these islands of excellence in this country, then they overpower everything else. तो मुझे सिर्फ ये तरीका नज़र आता है कि having some control over our fate is the only way is to build a center of excellence. तो विजन की आपने थोड़ी सी बात की थी ना, so the vision is how can we build Arbisoft as an institution which is a center of excellence, not by local standards but by global standards. तो मुझे लगता है बाकी जो चीज़ें आपके कंट्रोल में ही नहीं हैं, उनको चेंज करने के बजाय या उनके बारे में स्ट्रेस आउट होने के बजाय, just be focused on this mission. And everybody who's part of this institution, of this organization, they need to be focused on that mission, and it would do great things for individuals and for the whole. Because the thing is कि जब आप स्ट्राइव करते हैं ना एक्सेलेंस के लिए, तो आपको वो एज एन इंडिविजुअल और एज अ कलेक्टिव वो आपको ज़्यादा केपेबल बनाता है. तो द वर्स्ट पॉसिबल, वर्स्ट तो नहीं कहना चाहिए, लेकिन द लीस्ट आउटकम इज कि वी एंड अप बीइंग मोर केपेबल, ऑल ऑफ अस, इंडिविजुअल्स एंड द कंपनी. तो मुझे लगता है बस इस पे फोकस करना चाहिए. लाइक how can we build centers of excellence? How can I be excellent in my work? आपको पता है हमारी core value भी है.
Yes.
Again, how can I be excellent in my work, or how can my group or my team or my organization do work which I can proudly present to the world, not just कि अच्छा यार बस एक छोटी सी सेटिंग में या कुएं के मेंढक बन के नहीं, आप दुनिया के सामने अपना काम कैसे पेश कर सकते हैं. और अगर आप उस काम करने की काबिलियत आप में अभी नहीं है, जो कि शायद नहीं होती बहुत सारे लोगों में, तो फिर अपनी काबिलियत पे काम करते रहें जब तक आप उस काबिल हो जाएं कि आप उस तरह का काम करें. तो अगर थोड़ा सा नैरो डाउन कर लेना अपनी परेशानियों को इस चीज़ पे, तो आई थिंक यू कैन गेट होप, यू कैन गेट ऑप्टिमिज्म कि अच्छा आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू वरी अबाउट वेयर द कंट्री इज गोइंग, और लेकिन मेरे कंट्रोल में क्या है.
So since we're talking about we need to be focused on, let's say, the impact that our work is creating versus salary, for lack of a better term at this point. So would you say कि Arbisoft की जो values हैं, if somebody is a little too focused on their financial growth as compared to their professional personal growth, so that's like a cultural misfit?
I think you're absolutely right. If somebody is just purely focused on just their personal financial outcomes, तो और तो वो मल्टीपल वैल्यूज़ पे वायलेट कर रहे होंगे जो हमारी हैं. सो हमारी कोर वैल्यूज़ में कोलैबोरेशन है. इफ़ you're just too single minded and individualistic about your own, let's say, financial gain, आप misfit हैं. अगर आप एक्सेलेंस परसू नहीं कर रहे और सिर्फ let's say पैसा परसू कर रहे हैं, तब भी आप misfit हैं. तो सवाल आपका ये था कि wouldn't that be like a conflict with our values? Yes, absolutely. लेकिन आई थिंक इसमें एक अंडरलाइंग फिर सवाल ये आ जाता है कि are people coachable? हो सकता है perfectly smart and intelligent people are making bad life choices and decisions, or need good advice ताकि उनका किबला थोड़ा दुरुस्त किया जा सके, उनकी डायरेक्शन थोड़ी ठीक की जा सके. तो आम तौर पे इस तरह का केस जब डिस्कवर होता है तो हमारी कोशिश यही होती है कि थोड़ा सा काउंसलिंग करें, थोड़ी सी कोचिंग करें. If somebody is just completely uncoachable, very individualistic, very money driven, doesn't care about the quality of their work or excellence or the impact that they're going to create on the world, then yes, I think sooner or later they will have to part ways with this organization. And this has been an organizational failing because sometimes we take too long to make those decisions. Like we are very slow in letting people go, even when we know sometimes that they are not a good fit for the organization. तो लेकिन आई थिंक उसके पीछे मोटिवेशन यही है कि it's better to delay, in this particular case, a decision to separate somebody from the organization if it's the right decision, right? And sometimes, in your haste, you can make a wrong decision for somebody who's actually not going to be a good fit for the organization. तो इसलिए थोड़ा सा हम ज़्यादा डिलिजेंस टाइम ले लेते हैं इसके ऊपर. नहीं लेना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल से. कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि दिस इज़ लाइक एन एरिया ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट फॉर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कि हम थोड़ा सा ये वाले डिसीजंस जल्दी लिया करें. एट द सेम टाइम यू हैव टू टेक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम टू चूज़ द राइट फिट फॉर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. वो भी हमें गलती करते हैं कि स्पेशली फॉर सीनियर पोजीशंस हमें काफ़ी टाइम लेना चाहिए. काफ़ी अपने प्रोसेस ऑलरेडी काफ़ी रिग्रेस है, बट वी नीड टू मेक इट इवन मोर रिग्रेस कि don't make bad hiring mistakes. Because if you're making a hiring mistake that you have to undo later on, the cost is immense.
Yes.
And especially it's immense because then later on we take a lot of time making those decisions.
Yes, you're right. So I think यहाँ पर वो वाली चीज़ भी आ जाती है ना कि in a model which we exist, like services model में अमूमन लोग ये वाली बात करते हैं कि project आ रहा है, there is a big client, so you need to hire people और जल्दी से चीज़ें लगा दो, सारा करो. So obviously कभी कभी वहाँ पे हमें वो नज़र आ रही होती है कहीं पे maybe थोड़ा सा we did compromise, but because the need of the hour was of that such कि हमें वो देखना पड़ा. So वहाँ पे फिर एक और डिबेट शुरू हो जाती है, services model versus the product model, right? तो सर्विसेज में यस इस तरह की चीज़ें हों बट नहीं सस्टेनेबल हो जाता है. या प्रोडक्ट साइड पे लॉट ऑफ रिस्क, यू कैन नॉट डू दैट, इट्स लॉट ऑफ कॉस्ट इन्वॉल्व इन दैट. और हमने आई थिंक प्रोडक्ट में जाने की भी थोड़ी बहुत कोशिश भी की, बट हमने वो बहुत ज़्यादा रिस्क नहीं लिए. वो रिस्क ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने नहीं लिए, या वो रिस्क यासिर ने नहीं लिए उस टाइम पे, या हम देख भी रहे हैं उसको किसी लेवल पे.
I think it has always been a matter of like, can you find the right people to drive the product initiatives that you have? Or as with engineering, काफ़ी साल ढूंढने के बाद we said कि अच्छा, maybe we need to coach and train these people ourselves, right? That's how nurture came to being. That's how we've been consistently growing our product capability over the last 2-3 years. So many times it was a function of not having the right people. It has always been like a North Star for us कि we need to achieve excellence in both products and services. और product की hits अब आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आनी शुरू हो गई हैं. Like there are a few products that we've successfully exited. There are others that I'm very excited about. तो वो होगा. लेकिन yes, to your point, that progress has been slow because of the lack of availability of people. This happened with engineering also. Remember I was talking about कि अच्छा हमने sales organization setup नहीं की because हमें लगता था कि यार लोग ही नहीं हैं. Like if I expand the company to 5,000 people, कहाँ से 5,000 लोग आएंगे? लेकिन then 5 6 7 years ago आप लोगों को भी पता है कि we said कि यार let's figure out not only how can we actually start hiring people, identifying people first and then hiring them right when they are at the university rather than जब हमें ज़रूरत पड़े तो हम किसी बच्चे को हायर करें. अब we have a pretty good pipeline, right? We have good relationships with universities. We have some influence over what kind of graduates they're producing, and then we have become a lot better at screening people coming out of universities. We also are hopefully a much stronger brand now, right? So वो पहले जो एक ऑब्स्टिकल होता था लोगों के जहन में, अच्छा ये Arbisoft, अब बहुत कम लोगों को नहीं पता होगा कि यार एज अ कंपनी हम क्या करते हैं.
अच्छा, अभी हम रिग्रेस प्रोसेस की बात कर रहे थे essentially in terms of hiring, right? So it's not just Arbisoft. I think tech industry as a whole, we are so focused on making sure that people we are hiring have the right skills. जो हमारी skill requirements हैं वो meet हो रही हैं कि हम दूसरा aspect बिल्कुल भूल जाते हैं. And we may take एक behavioral interview usually. I'm not talking about Arbisoft, I'm talking about the industry in general. Most companies out there, and it doesn't really just have to be Pakistan. Globally भी अगर आप देखें तो usually एक behavioral interview होता है at the end of the entire वो, and that's really a formality because they know that this person is technically so sharp that we really want him or her to be in our team, right? कि वो फिर focus ना उस चीज़ से एक किस्म का हट जाता है. But don't you think कि एक certain cost उसके साथ भी attached है, because if somebody who is not aligned in terms of their foundational values with the company or the leadership or the team that they're working with, कि after a certain time एक वो conflict आ जाएगा, they won't be able to produce as much quality work as they would have in an environment where they felt more at home.
I think absolutely. So I completely agree with, let's say, the premise of your question. Okay, if somebody was a good cultural fit, would we be better off? Would they be better off? Absolutely, yes. This part I completely agree करता हूँ.
Yeah.
The part that I find, myself disagreeing with often जब ये debate आती है, is कि through an interview process or through some process, it could be behavioral interviews, it could be some form of psychometric testing. Can you really determine कि is this person a good cultural fit for the organization? तो फिर yes, we should use it. अभी तक मुझे कोई reliable तरीका कम से कम मुझे नहीं मिला. I'm sure आप लोगों को शायद कुछ ideas हो, and we should try them absolutely. Like I've always been open to trying those ideas. मुझे लगता है कि किसी के साथ काम करके ही पता चलता है कि आपकी उनके साथ chemistry सही होगी as an organization, as individuals, as team members. So if we could make somehow working with someone as part of their selection process, I think then we minimize the risk. Lekin just by doing one interview or one test, can you reliably determine if somebody is not going to be a great fit? I think बहुत मुश्किल है.
So I think what you're saying is कि it's worth taking a risk. अगर कोई false negative आ रहा है तो that's fine because false positives rule out ना हो रहे हो.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
मतलब तो personality के साथ कुछ लेना देना इसका, would you say कि हो सकता है maybe a certain personality can fit into that zone and some personalities should not be, they cannot align with it.
हाँ हो सकता है, like वो psychometric testing can reveal that, right? कि लेकिन again जिसमें आपको पता है ना कि वो होता था वो, what are those those 16 personality types and
the MBTIs.
Yeah, the MBTI. There are other tests like that. अब वो for decades companies use them. लेकिन I think more recent research in the last couple of decades say कि नहीं, MBTI you can almost completely ignore it, right? So मुझे लगता है कि कोई ऐसा नहीं है authentic psychometric test that everybody agrees on. और एक और portion जो मुझे लगता है कि वो miss कर जाते हैं ना. Let's say you have a certain personality shaped by the companies you worked at, your circumstances and your environment. And I think there is a question कि आप coachable हैं. Maybe you're coachable. Maybe when I'm testing you come with a lot of baggage, but that baggage can be removed from you, and then you would be a perfectly good fit. So I wish that there was a more kind of low cost way of determining कि अच्छा हाँ personality fit है या नहीं. मुझे लगता है कि अभी unfortunately बस एक high cost तरीका है, which is the probation. So in probation, you should be, both the individual and the organization should be, basically evaluating each other very, very carefully. कि यार अच्छा personality के issues तो नहीं हैं, mission values, principles match करते हैं या नहीं. And then there should be many, hopefully in probation, there should be many very honest, very direct conversations about, okay, this is what we are observing. तो शायद थोड़ा सा you can reduce the, let's say, eventual loss if it's going to happen a little bit. लेकिन there's no perfect way.
क्या ये कोई potential product हो सकता है, since you know a lot of people in academia as well? Like this can be something which obviously हमें नजर आ रहा है.
वैसे तो there are like so many case studies out there based on this, and I think nobody has really figured out what the magic potion
I feel like I would encourage both of you to kind of think of that product and work on it. One advantage that we have is that, let's say you design like a questionnaire or a survey or a test to determine is this person a good fit or not. You already have like 1,000 people and you already know whether most of them are good fits or not. Wherever they are not, that, right? So you could easily validate whether there was a strong correlation between your questionnaire and the responses we got. If there is a strong correlation, I think it could be turned into a product. So one of the reasons why I think we are a great company to build great products is that we have ready access to literally now thousands of people who would help us validate or test our idea. So ये काफ़ी important एक चीज़ है product development में, तो हमारे पास उसकी access है. लेकिन I would encourage, like आप लोगों के लिए this is like a subject of interest, right? So I would encourage both of you to maybe think about
we
this.
have a good
I think that this is something we're working on now. The entire world knows. Thank you.
So technology, right?
That's fine. एक तो ये कि idea जब इतनी unrefined stages पे हो ना, तो don't worry about the entire world knowing.
No.
And never think कि आपका idea सिर्फ आपको ही आया है.
Absolutely.
वो और भी हजारों लाखों लोगों को आया होगा. It's all about the execution. And what I'm telling you is that you have unique opportunities for execution that many other people with the same idea may not have.
Yep, absolutely. Bilkul, that's very true. So since you're talking about this, so इसी से related, I mean, a lot of times when people come to work for an organization, again, not talking specifically about Arbisoft, but generally if somebody comes to like work for an organization, उनके ज़हन में the image is usually associated in terms of what the leadership looks like. So for example, for an outsider, they would see Arbisoft equivalent to Yasser Bashir, right? However, when they come in, they wouldn't be directly working with that leadership. They wouldn't be working directly with the values that they foresaw before they, decided to pursue that certain company. उनका team culture थोड़ा different होगा. किसी project पे वो तो of course है client की वजह से there is like a different culture altogether. तो all of those people, उनके लिए even the probation वाली चीज़ is a little off because they're like कि यार maybe this is a short-term thing that I'm doing because my long-term goal is to be able to work with that kind of leadership. So I feel that वहाँ पे फिर the probation वाली चीज़ also wouldn't hold true because they wouldn't look at their probation in the light of, okay, this is an evaluation based on do I like this experience or not, because essentially for them that experience is like a means to an end.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think सवाल तो आपका बिल्कुल सही है और ये प्रॉब्लम जो है ना, ये आई थिंक वर्ल्ड वाइड प्रॉब्लम है, राइट? सो अमेज़ॉन को लोग एसोसिएट करते हैं जेफ बेजोस के साथ, ऑब्वियसली एप्पल को स्टीव जॉब्स के साथ करते थे. बहुत ही कम ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं जहाँ पे मस्क की सारी कंपनीज मस्क के साथ होती हैं, राइट? इलॉन मस्क के साथ. बहुत ही कम ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं जहाँ पे द करेक्टली और इनकरेक्टली, राइटली और रॉन्गली, द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन is not associated with, let's say, a figurehead. तो ये बहुत कम होता है. लेकिन in reality, no organization is just what the figurehead looks like. तो एप्पल की एग्जांपल ले लें. एप्पल का मतलब ये नहीं कि एप्पल में हर टीम उस तरह काम करती है जिस स्टीव जॉब्स काम करता था. तो और बहुत सारी टीमों में अच्छी चीज़ें होंगी उससे. Like Steve Jobs, for example, had many really terrible habits, which would make him a horrible boss. लेकिन हो सकता है एप्पल में बहुत सारी टीम हों जहाँ पे बड़े इंस्पायरिंग टीम लीड्स हैं। तो डाइवर्सिटी तो हर जगह थोड़ी सी उस तरह से होती है, और इस प्रॉब्लम का कोई इजी सोल्यूशन भी नहीं है। लेकिन आई थिंक वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट organizations need to do is they need to actively eliminate any dissonance with the values that the organization upholds. Maybe bhi agar let's say somebody wants to work with me, they want to work with me because of my values, right?
Yeah.
Not शक्ल तो नहीं देख के मैं सब काम करना चाहता,
I mean,
right?
I don't know.
I doubt it, right? तो मेरी एज अ लीडर ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन माई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इज कि वो जितनी फ्रिक्शन है ना उसको मैं कम करूँ, राइट, बिटवीन द वैल्यूज दैट आई अपहोल्ड एंड द कल्चर्स और सब कल्चर्स दैट माई टीम्स हैव और माई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैज़ ओवरऑल। आपने देखा होगा मैं काफ़ी कोशिश करता हूँ उसकी एज अ लीडर कि वो थोड़ी पास ऑन करें वो वैल्यूज़, और जो हमारी टीम्स हैं और जो हमारे लीड्स हैं उनको कॉन्स्टेंटली सिखाया जाए दिस इज़ व्हाट वी स्टैंड फॉर, दीज आर आवर वैल्यूज़ एंड दीज आर आवर प्रिंसिपल्स। प्रिंसिपल्स जो होते हैं वो ज़रा थोड़े से वैल्यूज से कम एब्स्ट्रैक्ट होते हैं, तो ये चीज़ें कम्युनिकेट करते रहना चाहिए और फिर उससे फ़ायदा हो जाता है।
Do you also think कि like when a company is growing, तो I mean I think this is something for sure जो हम देखते भी हैं कि cultural एक किस्म का dilute होने लग जाता है, right? Because the more people that come in, they bring in their own values और फिर वो एक किस्म का this like वो बन रहा है एक चीज़. So for a CEO essentially, isn't it hard to think about कि what the company would be like, let's say 100 years from now? Because I mean, एक successor आपने identify करना है कि अच्छा यार, I want this to be like a company that continues even if I am not here, right?
Yeah.
तो
With the same vision and
with the same vision,
the way you think about
हाँ,
your
जिस तरह
people.
मैंने इसको वो बनाया है,
Yeah.
जितनी मेहनत मैंने की है, I wanted to grow, and like, how do I trust another person?
Are
with
you
this
looking for such
company?
people? Do you have such people? Like,
How do
what
you think
Yeah.
about like जब भी आप इस बार I'm sure you this crosses your mind, right? This thought crosses your mind.
Absolutely, all the time, right? So all the time I'm thinking about, again it goes back to the earlier point that I was making कि can you imagine a center of excellence, जो हम कह रहे थे ना
Yeah.
कि we should aspire to build centers of excellence. Can you imagine a center of excellence जहाँ पे there's no succession planning in place? मुश्किल है, right? Like for it to be a center of excellence there has to be like some succession planning, और उसमें we are constantly on the lookout for such leaders, और बहुत मुश्किल होता है ऐसे लोग जो, मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि ना सिर्फ उस लेवल पे जहाँ पे हम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को चला रहे हैं बल्कि उससे why not somebody who's even smarter, even more ambitious. So constantly on the lookout. There are candidates that I have in mind. I'm not going to name a person, but I just met them.
Yeah.
I tried really hard convincing them that they should come to this organization. So absolutely, but it's a long and arduous journey. It's not like a कोई shortcut नहीं है इसका. I'm constantly on the lookout for people who could be potential leaders for this organization. Just met a person who I think would be great. Can't name them yet, but tried convincing them. And my real hope is that somebody from within the organization, within Arbisoft, actually rises up the ranks and becomes that person. That would be the ideal outcome of this. And if as an organization, हमने enough नहीं किया to facilitate that, then we should. तो वो है, बहुत सारे लोगों में पोटेंशियल था, like we've lost some really good people. बहुत सारे लोग अभी भी हैं जिनमें पोटेंशियल है. I hope we don't lose them. That can eventually get there. So the hope is that there will be very smooth handover to somebody who's more capable, more dynamic, more inspiring, and will take the organization to be that center of excellence जो हम जिसकी बात करते जा रहे हैं बार-बार.
ठीक है, makes sense. तो आहिस्ता-आहिस्ता we can see someone eventually.
For sure.
Eventually.
Yeah. So Yasser bhai, अब since we are in tech industry and we are all talking about AI, AGI, ये सारी बातें हो रही हैं, उसके ऊपर कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स की बातें कुछ लोग कर रहे हैं, कुछ लोग काम करना चाह रहे हैं MLAI वाली साइड पे भी. सो आप उस एंगल को कैसे देख रहे हैं कि क्या हमें उस तरह की चीज़ों पे और मज़ीद, क्या वी आर लुकिंग फॉर प्रोजेक्ट्स, आर वी थिंकिंग और समथिंग मेकिंग ऑन हम लोगों को क्या ट्रेन कर रहे हैं उसके अंदर, कोई R&D कर रहे हैं, सेकंड उसका चैलेंज ये आ रहा होता है कि सिंस यू आर वर्किंग विद क्लाइंट्स और हमारा कोड सोर्स की सारी जो बेस है वो किस तरह से हम यूज़ कर रहे हैं, वो कहाँ पे जा रहा है, हमारे पास क्या रेगुलेशंस उसकी चल रही हैं, बिकॉज क्रिएटिव रेगुलेशंस के ऊपर काम करना इवेंचुअली बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाता है. जैसे कि अभी भी हम देखते थे राइटर स्ट्राइक चल रही थी बिकॉज ऑफ द क्रिएटिव इशूज़, राइट?
Yeah.
तो गवर्नमेंट क्या उसमें इंटरवेंशन लेकर आ रही है, या इंडस्ट्री सीईओज डिफरेंट क्या इंटरवेंशन लेकर आ रहे हैं, किस तरह से हम इसको एज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी as well as a threat, we're looking at that. And uske upar, what are we thinking about that? Do you guys even talk about these things, how things are evolving eventually?
Absolutely, I think there's no question about it कि वो inflection point है एक, you know, how technology is built. This is definitely an inflection point. So we would be amiss if we didn't recognize that fact. जो नई जनरेटिव एआई की टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं उन्होंने पहली दफ़ा एआई को प्रॉपर्ली मेन स्ट्रीम किया एंड दे आर गोइंग टू अफेक्ट मेनी प्रोफेशंस एंड सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग इज़ नॉट एन एक्सेप्शन. तो ये तो हमें पता है. उसके बारे हम क्या कर रहे हैं वेरी कॉन्शियसली. आई एम श्योर यू ऑल्सो ऑब्जर्व के वी ग्रेजुअली इंक्रीजिंग आवर कैपेसिटी टू डू एआई. तो हम काफ़ी अर्से से कर रहे थे, लेकिन अब पिछले तकरीबन 1-1.5 साल से तो हम जनरेटिव एआई के ऊपर भी अपनी कैपेबिलिटी काफ़ी रैपिडली इंक्रीज करते जा रहे हैं. एक जो कॉशनरी टेल ये है कि कभी भी किसी शाइनी न्यू थिंग के पीछे इतना आप पागलों की तरह ना भागें कि बेसिकली आप सब कुछ छोड़ के उसके पीछे भागना शुरू कर दें. तो वी रेजिस्टेड दैट टेम्पटेशन when everybody was saying blockchain and we were like we have to take this with a pinch of salt. So definitely I'm mindful कि अभी थोड़ा सा let's say overestimated है the potential for generative AI to completely disrupt professions. I think वो एक technology adoption curve है, तो उसमें peak of heightened expectations होती है. So we are at the peak of heightened expectations right now. And then it comes down to what is the realistic impact. So that will happen in the next few months.
I think realistic वैसे हम पहुंच गए हैं क्योंकि वो जो heightened expectations थी ना वो February March it was pretty crazy and now people are finally realizing it's fine.
Yeah, I think people keep mistaking LLMs and generative AI for artificial general intelligence, which is a completely different thing, right? I mean, I don't think we are much closer to AGI than we were a few years ago. तो वो वाला जो एस्पेक्ट है अभी भी मुझे लगता है थोड़ा ओवर एस्टिमेटेड है, बट ओवरऑल yes, LLMs and generative AI has done has definitely created like an inflection point in this industry. अच्छा, इसमें जो मेरा व्यू पॉइंट है ना उसमें दो तरह की इस वक्त जनरेटिव एआई हो रही है. एक जनरेटिव एआई हो रही है with extremely large foundational models like the ones that OpenAI is building. Very large model, billions if not trillions of parameters, infrastructure that you or I or smaller companies can never hope to have. If this model succeeds, then I'm afraid we are screwed, right? Because how are you going to compete with these with the Googles and OpenAIs of the world with the massive, let's say, infrastructure and capability they have? There's another model which we Arbisoft also, but many other smaller companies are putting their weight behind, which is the Facebook model. Facebook का मॉडल मुझे ज़बरदस्त लगता है. उन्होंने क्या किया कि उनका जो लार्ज फाउंडेशनल मॉडल था लामा जिसका नाम है, उसको उन्होंने ओपन सोर्स भी कर दिया और अब कमर्शियल यूज के लिए भी अलाउ कर दिया. तो इफ यू कैन टेक अ लामा which has been trained 90% on that large Facebook infrastructure, and then you fine tune or special train the last 10% to accomplish the same tasks that an OpenAI foundational model would accomplish. So here there is hope for companies like us. Abhi hamari jo AI strategy it's very much focused on how do you take open source or freely available language models like the llama, and then you specialize it for your use case and get at least the same quality or slightly less quality than let's say OpenAI or other large closed foundational models. तो ये अगर strategy successful होती है तो I'd be very excited, and हमने की है ये successful. So we've trained llama to do things which are amazing, and actually one of them is kind of like a stealth project that's going to be launched in Arbisoft pretty soon, so you'll all be benefiting from it as well. But you'll see that the quality is really high, nearly as good as interacting with ChatGPT or GPT-3 or GPT-4. So that gives me hope, and kudos to Facebook and their strategy, because Google and OpenAI have a completely different strategy.
Yes. मेरे ख्याल में काफ़ी क्रिटिसिज्म भी मार्क को मिला था ऑफ ओपन सोर्स लामा को करने का और आगे कैसे उसकी चीज़ें चलनी.
हाँ, नहीं, आई थिंक मैंने अभी पीछे शायद ट्वीट किया था, मुझे याद नहीं, कहीं पोस्ट किया था. आई रियली एडमायर कि मोर देन एनीवन एल्स Facebook has been, or Meta, now it's called Meta. Meta has been opening up a lot more than many of these other, क्या उनको कहते हैं, the big five organizations.
Fang.
Yeah, Fang.
Now
or
they're the Mang.
Mang. Yeah. So yeah, I think Facebook's role in the Fang companies is more admirable than some of the other ones.
In terms of just helping
Opening
other
up,
communities,
helping, creating an ecosystem, creating a community. अब देखें ना, React Facebook की लाइब्रेरी थी, तो उन्होंने कितने अच्छे तरीके से React को किया. पूरी दुनिया में React की हज़ारों लाखों जॉब्स क्रिएट हो गई, and most modern web projects use React as their front end.
Yes.
And Facebook did a much better job of doing that with React than, let's say, Google, जिनका Angular था, तो Angular भी अच्छी लाइब्रेरी है, but आहिस्ता आहिस्ता Facebook's commitment to React just shows, right? And then it kind of became the de facto standard. इसी तरह मुझे, my hope is that Llama becomes a de facto standard and Facebook continues to put their weight behind, let's say, an open source free LLM. फिर आप compete कर सकते हैं Google's के साथ.
So since we're talking about open source things and things that are literally just out there, थोड़ी unrelated चीज़ है, but still, what's your take on pay transparency? I know you've always been a huge advocate for transparency in general, within Arbisoft as well as outside. Now that this is becoming, especially in the US now, laws are being passed where states are required to disclose, income ranges for jobs that are being posted. What's your take on that? Given the Pakistani environment that we operate in, jahan pe essentially if somebody finds out that Arbisoft is paying this person this much and we want to hire this person, we're going to just pay them like X amount more.
I think so. There are two questions here, right? So there's internal pay transparency, and there's external pay transparency. तो मुझे नहीं पता कि आपका सवाल किसके बारे में.
So internal though is, I would say, a safer thing to do, right? But more so on the external front.
मुझे ये लगता है कि काफ़ी रिस्क है उसमें. Like the market needs to be a lot more mature than they are right now for external pay transparency. Because आपकी बात वही है कि if you're running an organization of 1,000 people, you have to very, very carefully create a balance of how people are compensated. Lekin you're a new startup and you got some funding, and you need to hire just 2 people. So you can be disproportionately exploitative of someone else's pay structures. तो या तो आपके अंदर एज एन इंडस्ट्री मैच्योरिटी हो कि आपको पता चले कि यार ये एक्सप्लॉयटेशन जो है ना, इट कैन कम बैक एंड हॉन्ट मी समडे एज वेल, तो आप उसमें कॉशन एक्सरसाइज करें. लेकिन अभी मुझे लगता है कि एज एन इंडस्ट्री शायद लेवल ऑफ मैच्योरिटी इज रियली लो. आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ऊपर जा रही है, बट मुझे लगता है कि अभी it would not be a wise thing to do कि like अगर हम अपने let's say individuals की salaries transparent कर दें. लेकिन I don't think there is harm in the industry as a whole coming up with much better benchmarks. जिस तरह का पाशा करता है, we know कि वो उस level पे नहीं है जहाँ हम चाहें. I know you, Sarah, have worked a lot on collecting more data around this. लेकिन अगर as an industry हम ज़्यादा reliable data from reliable companies, not at an individual level but at a collective level available कर दें, तो सबका फ़ायदा होगा. So as an industry we should all strive towards creating better, let's say, industry benchmarks. Slabs हमारी क्या हैं वो हम publish करें और दूसरी companies उनको देख लें, कोई बुराई नहीं है उसमें. I as an organization, अगर मैं आपको अपना point of view बताऊं, अगर मुझे लगे कि for a certain slab of people we are actually underpaid, I would definitely want to increase the compensation for that slab. लेकिन मेरे पास अभी reliable data नहीं आता, तो अगर मुझे पता भी लगे कि यार ये कम लग रहा है, तो I'm always questioning कि how reliable is this data. So I think this question will become a lot more relevant when we start getting more reliable data from different companies.
So do you think it's just the industry that needs to be more mature versus the individuals? Like when they're making these decisions of like, let's say switching to a product company, knowing कि इतनी ज़्यादा funding आई भी है, they could like close down in a few months if they just, exhaust all their funds like this. So shouldn't this be like an individual maturity cut decision as well?
I think many of these decisions are taken by people who are, let's say, in their 20s or early 30s. They're young people, and I give them a lot more leeway for making like bad decisions or making mistakes or, making suboptimal decisions. Organizations, however, have been around for, the kind of organizations that we are talking about are hopefully mature organizations, have been around for decades, if years, if not decades. तो वहाँ पे मैं थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा maturity expect करता हूँ. Individual की भी responsibility है. I mean, no shying away from it. But I feel like, again, good benchmarks would help the individuals as well as the industry overall. अब देखिए ना, आपके पास एक बहुत अच्छा reliable benchmark published है. Let's say पाशा ने अपना benchmark बहुत reliable बना दिया है. Everybody agrees that it's a good benchmark and it's published. And as an individual, you're making a decision to do a job hop. And you're pretty clear about your capability and competency levels as well. और वो जॉब जो है आपको पूरी इंडस्ट्री से 3 गुना दे रही है पैसे, ठीक है? तो there's no way that it's not coming with a certain amount of risk as well, right?
Of course,
तो
yeah.
लेकिन ये कि अगर इंडिविजुअल्स के पास वो डेटा हो ना, तो they can weigh के रिस्क वर्सेस रिवॉर्ड क्या है. अभी उनको शायद ये लग रहा हो क्योंकि डेटा ही नहीं है कि यार maybe everybody is paying like this, so why shouldn't I be paid 3 times the salary that I'm making, completely ignoring the industry averages or medians or the risks that come with high salaries, with the size of the company. Obviously, larger companies, your job can be more stable. In a very small startup, you could be asked to go anytime. So the job of the companies is to collaborate, to come together and make high quality data available for everybody, individuals and companies, and then hopefully decision making at all levels would improve a little bit. हम वो नहीं करते, हम डिफिकल्ट काम नहीं करते, हम आसान काम करना चाहते हैं. डिफिकल्ट काम ये है कि अच्छी क्वालिटी का डेटा इकट्ठा करें, पब्लिश करें. और अगेन आई फील लाइक आई शुड नॉट बी preaching something that I don't practice. We have tried to set, as an organization, we have tried to set the precedent for good quality data and making it available. And I think, as you both know, the biggest example of that is कि we've been very transparent about our the fresh grad hiring results. तो वो हम publish करते हैं और hopefully we made it high quality as well. तो ऐसे नहीं लगता कि अच्छा यार बस ऐसे ही किसी ने कर दिया. We put in a lot of effort in making it reliable and meaningful for the people who are looking at it. तो ये सबको करने की ज़रूरत है बहुत higher level पे.
यासर भाई, मुझे वो चीज़ रिसेंटली जब हमने आरिफ इकबाल से भी मेट, तो उसने भी एक ही बात की थी कि यासर ने ना एक बुक रिकमेंड किया, री इन्वेंटिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. सो यू रिकमेंड दैट बुक. आप मुझे बताएं, वेयर डू यू सी योर कंपनी? इज इट अ ग्रीन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड यू वांट टू बी अ टील ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और इट्स सपोज्ड टू बी अ मिक्सचर ऑफ these?
I don't think we are at the teal level. Lekin I also don't think ke, it's necessarily a desirable level given what we are doing right now.
Yes.
तो देखें, एक मैं हमेशा कॉशन करता हूँ लोगों को, कोई भी किताब, don't read a book as a prescriptive manual.
True.
So don't read a book and say अच्छा अब इसमें जो कुछ सारा कुछ लिखा है ना मैं अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में करना है. किताबें इसलिए नहीं होती. किताबें आप इसलिए पढ़ते हैं ताकि आपका जो सोचने का अंदाज है, जो आपकी थिंकिंग है, वो आप वाइडन हो, ब्रॉडन हो, और आप ज़्यादा पर्सपेक्टिव्स को सामने रख के डिसीजन मेकिंग कर सकें. तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें ऐसी हमने इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में की हैं जो कि इंस्पायर्ड बाय टील ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं. और उसकी एग्जांपल्स मैं आपको दे सकता हूँ. सो सेटिंग अप एडवाइजरी टीम्स फॉर एग्जांपल, राइट? कि an organization should be a network of teams, but for those teams to succeed, there should be advisory teams. Yes. This is a teal concept.
Yes.
Okay? Giving teams autonomy, as much autonomy as we can give. This is a teal concept.
Yes.
So I feel like we have done many teal concepts. In other places, we might even be lower than the green organizations. So obviously our cafeteria does not compare with Google's cafeteria, right? So that's like a green organization ke acha yaar wo just basically you know do like very external things to kind of make people happy. Extrinsic motivation जो आप लोगों की increase कर रहे हैं. Teal organizations are more about increasing the intrinsic motivation. So I would say it would be um, it won't be fair for us to pigeonhole कि Arbisoft teal है या फलानी company red है या green है. I think we've taken elements of few. Hopefully we are not red in anything. Red जो होती हैं वो आपको पता ही है.
Yes.
According to the book, they are fascist organizations, right? जहाँ पे
Mafias.
if you disagree with the leader,
mafia.
then your head gets chopped off. So try not to disagree with me in this podcast. Anyway,
Oh God.
So ये सवाल भी काफी लोगों का था कि यासिर से जब भी बात करो तो एनिमे से लेके किताबों से लेके सीजन से लेके cuisine से लेके he knows
Sports,
about
like
sports,
literally everything.
everything. आप
I think I know
कैसे निकाल लेते हैं?
little bit about everything. So I wouldn't consider myself an expert in anything. लेकिन I think वो क्या कहते हैं, variety is the spice of life, right? I would get super bored if I just did one thing. So it's just a boredom minimization strategy के try different चीज़ों में आप करें. और phases होते हैं. किसी phase के अंदर आप sports पे बहुत focused होते हैं. किसी phase के ऊपर आप किताबों पे focused होते हैं. कभी कभी like other forms of entertainment. तो मेरी general advice यही है कि unless you're like a deeply focused researcher doing just one thing, diversity of ideas and opinions and modes and mediums is always a good idea, right? वो media जो हैं मुख्तलिफ किस्म की किताबें, मसलन सीखते हैं ना आपने आजकल कुछ, तो आप सिर्फ किताब पढ़ के नहीं सीख सकते. You have to watch that YouTube video. You have to enroll in that online course. You have to subscribe to like a few Twitter accounts. Social media भी आपने इस्तेमाल करना है. तो unidimensional अब चीज़ें होना काफ़ी कम हो गई हैं. So there are things that you learn that you would not be able to learn if you didn't watch TV, for example. तो I think उस तरह से multidimensional होना अच्छा है, लेकिन I think it would not be fair to say कि मैं बहुत सारी चीज़ों का expert हूँ. I'm क्या उसे कहना चाहिए, dabbler in a lot of things.
But I think the question really is कि how do you get time to even, let's say, do one or two of these things because of like your commitment with like Arbisoft, of course.
And you're a mentor, you're an investor, you talk
like
to people.
You're talking to people, your social network itself is
Yeah.
like so huge. I think Jahan के साथ भी हम ये सवाल हमने उनसे पूछा था, and I think that same holds true for you. कि at times having that social network उनके साथ वो maintain करना is a task, right? Because you have to make sure कि you're staying connected. So how do you deal with all of these things together, like
I think
24 hours a day?
It's difficult to strike a perfect balance for anyone, and it is difficult for me to strike a perfect balance as well. वो क्या कहते हैं, मैं एक anecdotally कहता हूँ, ऐसे लोग किस समझना शुरू हो गए कि मेरी theory है या कुछ ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. But I anecdotally tell people कि 5 चीज़ें होती हैं. So your personal well-being, which is health and exercise वगैरह, sleep, family, friends and work. तो ये 5 चीज़ें हैं जिनको आपने कुछ बैलेंस करना है ना आपस में. तो रियलिस्टिकली 3 से ज़्यादा नहीं कर सकते आप. ठीक है, अगर आप 3 से ज़्यादा करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो कोई चीज़ कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होगी. मेरे केस में वो 3 चीज़ें और वर्क. तो वर्क मेरा कम कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ होता है. Definitely family. And some aspect of health or exercise, because that's important. The 2 things that get compromised for me is friends. So I don't nearly spend enough time with friends. I should spend more, और complain भी बहुत करते हैं. And sleep. तो मुझे लगता है to your question कि like I should do some things a little less and increase, let's say, quality and quantity of sleep and time with friends. लेकिन वो compromise हो रहे हैं जो कि नज़र नहीं आ रहा ना. So there are things that are getting compromised because I'm trying to do so many other things all at the same time. Like, for example, watching shows is family time, right? Like, I mean, that's something that you do with your family. तो वहाँ पे so I don't consider it like separate from, okay, I have separate family time and separate this. So you try to combine these things together as well. Similarly, exercise, right? Like you could make exercise family time as well.
Yeah.
So I think one good time conservation strategy is to combine some of these things into club them together and then do them. So there's a learning and entertainment could be combined somehow.
Not for everyone, but
Not for everyone, but let's say like, I have ideas about nutrition.
yeah.
So I was just checking Netflix yesterday. So there's a new show called, Living Up to 100.
Yes.
So it's, I'm sure there's a bit of entertainment in that show, but
Yeah.
there's probably also a lot of learning, right?
Yeah.
So जब आप वो देखेंगे तो you've combined your entertainment and your learning a little bit. So, just basically bundling things together is a good
Smart.
strategy.
It's funny that I've heard this 5 compartments very theory through a friend of yours.
Oh,
Not
really?
knowing him.
Oh, okay. Not everyone agrees with it. I think it's pretty accurate. I think you
Yeah,
can
right.
create a balance. लेकिन चीजें थोड़ी out of balance होती रहती हैं. लेकिन it's very difficult to strike a perfect balance every time. कुछ ना कुछ compromise हो जाता है. कभी health compromise हो जाती है, कभी sleep, कभी friends, कभी family, कभी work. So, yeah. You have to choose what you want compromised.
Yeah. All right. So as we talked about like the various things you're doing generally, and अभी आपने वो 5 compartments की एक किस्म की बात की. So I think the next question then comes up के how do you de-stress generally based on the fact के like you don't have an easy day at work, I'm sure. Like
Yeah.
all the decisions you're making, you're probably exhausted by the time that you get
And
home.
wearing multiple hats.
Yeah. So what do you do to, just like relax?
I think stress buster तो मेरे ज़हन में कोई doubt नहीं है. There's no better stress buster than exercise. So you should go for a walk, ideally with someone, or you go for a run. मेरे केस में obviously मैं कभी squash खेल लेता हूँ, or I'd go for swimming. तो exercise जो है ना वो आपको endorphins release करती है जो फिर आपके stress को reduce करते हैं. तो I think that's number one. In my case, spending time with family is, I think, important. Like, again, like the entire family, my direct family, parents, siblings, children, your spouse, obviously. um, I think वो important चीज़ है. उसके अलावा, yeah, I mean, you could definitely indulge in like nice entertainment, like read a good book, watch a good movie or a good TV show, or listen to a podcast. जैसे सबीन ने कहा कि she listens to podcasts at night. तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं. And I think also just really important to stay in the moment. मुझे लगता है कि stress जो होता है वो it's a function of anxieties about the future or regrets about the past. तो ये भी मैं काफ़ी कहता रहता हूँ कि regrets about the past का तो कोई खास फायदा नहीं है because you can't go back and change.
Yeah.
And anxieties about future can be only resolved by fixing your present. So if you consider this framework that the only thing that you ever need to do is just focus on this one day or this 1 hour or this one moment and figure out इसमें क्या हो सकता है. Because otherwise, it's very difficult to beat stress. तो लोगों को यही कोशिश करनी, ये बहुत मुश्किल है. यानी कि वो यही कहते हैं ना कि जन्नत में जाके असल डेफिनेशन ऑफ जन्नत इज के देयर इज नो एंजाइटी और नो रिग्रेट. बाकी सारी चीज़ें तो है ना, लेकिन पैराडाइज इज अ प्लेस वेयर यू हैव नो एंजाइटीज नो रिग्रेट्स. तो ऑब्वियसली दुनिया में मुमकिन नहीं है, लेकिन टू द एक्सटेंट पॉसिबल, to the extent that we have control over our anxieties and our regrets, I think we should address them. And if you can use someone's help to address them, that's also great. One of the things that I really like about the new generation is that they don't shy away from, okay, I'm feeling this mental stress, so I need some help, so I'll consult. पहले हमारी generation में it was a stigma.
Yeah.
But it's a terrible idea to live your life with anxiety or depression or stress and not doing anything about it.
Agree.
तो I think figure out कि आपने उसको कैसे करना है. अगर कोई external help चाहिए वो करें, otherwise whatever your mechanism is, whether it's exercise, whether it's sleep, whether it's talking to friends or family, whether it's meditation, cutting, they can bring yourself back to the state of presence, right? To be in that moment rather than lost in the future or in the past.
Agreed. So Yasser bhai, do you have a favorite book nowadays, or a season?
Like we usually ask people for recommendations, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be like a specific.
I think there are so many. बहुत एक चीज recommend करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है, लेकिन seasons though I think I told you guys, right? I mean I really enjoyed Ted Lasso. People should watch it.
Yes, definitely.
और उसका एक quote मेरा favorite quote बन गया है, वो उससे कहता है कि coach होता है ना उसमें,
Yes.
he's a football coach, so they ask him, वो उसकी boss उससे पूछती है, do you believe in ghosts? So he said, I do believe in ghosts, but I want them to believe in themselves, right? Because he's a coach, right?
Yeah.
So वो coach वाली बात कर रहा है, तो I really enjoyed it. It has good lessons. I think वो देख लें. I really liked इससे पहले the show that I really liked was a show called Slow Horses. तो वो बहुत ही मजे का show है. I think वो देखें. वो खैर, it will appeal to a certain taste because it's not like fast paced or anything. It's a really great show. I think BBC ka hai.
Right.
Books, I am reading a book that I've wanted to read for a very long time. It's called Thinking in Systems. So systems thinking ke upar it's supposedly a Bible, and systems thinking is really important no matter what you do, right?
Yeah.
That's really great. At any given point, I'm usually not reading one book but multiple books. Another book that I'd wanted to read for a long time is Nick Lane's The Vital Question. और वो बिल्कुल different चीज़ है. So it's a fascinating book because it talks about how we evolved from, let's say, unicellular organisms. एकदम से इतनी complexity किस तरह हो गई, right? Because the cell came first. And we still have cells, but how is it that some cells took a different path and became very complex organisms? So, बहुत groundbreaking research hai.
Okay,
And I got the idea for this book from an AI expert that I really admire, Andrej Karpathy. Andrej ने अपनी वो Lex Friedman के साथ podcast में recommend की थी, so I've been reading it. It's really a fascinating book. So yeah, I think those shows and these books. और I'm really enjoying Foundation. वो तो खैर Foundation तो पता नहीं must है, right? Like I mean it's like the landmark work that Asimov did, and बहुत well produced show if people want to watch that. And another thing I want to recommend, here's another idea for recommendations जो मैंने उससे लिया था. So I listen to this podcast की भी recommendations हो सकती हैं, right?
Yeah,
I listened to this podcast called After Hours.
The Harvard professors.
The Harvard professors वाली ना. तो उसमें वो they don't just recommend books and movies. They also recommend TV shows. They also recommend recipes. So one thing I would recommend that I've been recommending to a lot of people, so this is not the first time I'm recommending it, is something called उसका नाम भी मुझे सोचना पड़ता है. It's called the Himalaya Vajomba Activush Mint. It's like the best candy that I've tried in life.
That is a lot of words.
Yeah. Al Fatah se milti hai, but try it. You won't go back. It's the best mint that you've ever had.
Okay, I'm just gonna look for a Himalaya because that's all I remember.
Himalaya Vajomba Activush Mint.
Okay.
That's fine.
Excessive verbiage.
So yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right, so whenever we end our podcast, we
Yeah.
usually सबको कहते हैं कि if there's like a message that you'd want to give to people out there,
Yeah.
so what would that message be?
I think मेरा message यही है कि लोगों को कि यार देखें, learn to recognize your privileges. हम सब लोग जो इस कमरे में हैं extremely privileged हैं. If you went to university, you're privileged. If you're raised by two parents, you're privileged. तो अपने privileges जो है ना उनको recognize करें, and first of all be extremely grateful for those. But then also realize that just that the fact that you're privileged also means a lot more responsibility. तो फिर रिकग्नाइज करें कि जो मुझे सारे ज़िंदगी में प्रिविलेजेस मिले हैं जो और लोगों को नहीं मिले, उसकी वजह से मेरे पे क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आती है, एंड देन वर्क टूवर्ड्स लीडिंग अ रिस्पॉन्सिबल लाइफ. बिकॉज और वाकई like what is the purpose, right, of being in this world other than to realize what you're responsible for and then taking care of that responsibility. And I feel like responsibility is a function of privilege. It is a function of good fortune. Or if you're one of those people who've had good fortune and who've had privileges, then you have to basically put them to good use. So uske bare mein just be constantly mindful.
Great. Thank you so much, Yasser bhai. Thank
Done
you
ho
so
gaya?
much.
That was
Yes,
zabardast.
thank you so much. Honestly,
Excellent.
we're so glad we
Yeah.
did this and you agreed to do this. Took us a lot of
मजा
convincing.
आया. Good
Yeah.
fun. Good
So,
conversation. Hopefully
yeah.
लोगों को भी कोई
Even though the podcast has ended, we really wanted you to read something out loud for us.
Please.
Okay.
Can you pause your phone?
Yeah.
We came across this newsflash article from like, I don't know,
Oh my god.
the 2000s.
Please, Yasser bhai.
Shuru mein bilkul, and it's super funny. So, if you want to appreciate like my
Oh ये वो
Sherlock
दांतों वाला
skills.
तो नहीं है.
दांतों वाला कौन सा है?
अच्छा वो I wrote an article तो उस पे chalk होता था, एक साइट होती थी chalk.com उस पे.
Nice. So this is something different. I think Umair bhai probably wrote this, but it has like a few lines on everybody from the batch of '97.
ये कौन सा मैंने अपना पढ़ना है या?
Yeah, सिर्फ अपना पढ़ना.
So ये वो होगा.
Do you want me to?
मैं कर लेता हूँ. Oh my god.
Are we recording this?
Okay, after realizing that his CS skills were fundamentally lacking and that his soft skills were truly soft, Yasser gave up on the idea of making millions or doing a PhD or really doing anything at all. He spends his days in relative anonymity, now at Align International, where he signed upon, promising the company lifelong fidelity. Yasser, being married to success for so long, is now a very lonely man. Girls. This is funny यार. ये किसने लिखा था? ये वो हमारे वो क्लास नोट्स
I
में
think
आया.
Umair bhai and somebody else, like
अच्छा,
both of them. And
cla-
apparently it has everybody's name. If you want me to send it to you, I'll do that. And then
नहीं
you
नहीं
can
मुझे
just.
याद है वो क्लास नोट्स किसी ने किए होंगे.
So this
collect
is super
किया.
funny.
Yeah, this is funny.
Thank you.
चलिए शुक्रिया. जबरदस्त.